I've got some great comments and questions today. The main one is on, do foods really go extinct? Thanks for joining us today on Questions and Answers with James Townsend and Son. Here's the first question. It comes from the Ship's Biscuits video that we did several years ago, but still very popular. Would adding a dry season, such as sugar or an Italian herb, ruin the shelf life? Also, what's your recommended shelf life for Ship's Biscuits? Well, Ship's Biscuits they're made to last for a long time. But we have to really remember that Ship's Biscuits are meant to be sort of like an ingredient for other foods. You can't eat them as is, and there really isn't a good reason to add spices or other things to them. It will definitely affect the shelf life. They'll go bad a lot quicker, and depending on what you want to use them in, they might not... The taste or the spices that come in might not work with the kind of dish you're going to use them in. They need to be versatile, so that's why they're very plain. They're just flour basically baked with water. You'll want to add those spices into the dish as you're cooking it. So it'll both affect the longevity of it, and it might not add the right flavor in the right dish. Here's a good question that came in on the Parmesan ice cream episode. Man, that stuff was good. The question is, how was ice available in 1836 at all? And was there an actual market for this, or was this only available in specific parts of the world? Interesting question. I'm not sure exactly where they're going with it. Different parts of the world. Definitely ice was available in most regions of, let's just say, Europe and North America, depending on the time of year, of course. And I think even by 1836, there was an ice trade going on. They were actually shipping ice, possibly from North America to Europe. I know that was happening later on. Could have been happening as early as 1836. Ice was available to most of those, especially if you had an ice house. Most places, it would freeze up. They would store their ice until later on in the summer, and they would be able to use it for quite a long period of time, especially in 1836. So was it usually available? Yeah, most people, let's just say middle and upper class, definitely had ice available to them at least part of the year. We talked about using a small beer in the roast beef episode that we did this summer. During the Dutch Oven series, which is a great series. The question here is, so what would a small beer consist of? And small beer was made from the second use of the malted barley mash. As you're making beer, you wouldn't, instead of throwing the mash out after you made your first batch of beer, you'd go ahead and use it again for a second batch of beer. There wasn't as much sugar available, so it had a much lower alcoholic content, but it was still, somewhat alcoholic beer, maybe 1-2%. And that's kind of where small beer comes from. And it was a very common beverage for all levels of society, and even women and children at times would drink small beer. And here's the main question. It came in on the crumpet episode, of course. And it's really not a question, it's a comment. LOL at you provincial Yanks who think crumpets are an extinct food. I think it's a great comment, and we really didn't mean to say that we didn't think that crumpets weren't being eaten in different parts of the world, but they just weren't, really popular in this area. But apparently, even in different parts of North America, as the comments came in, we found out that different places, crumpets are very available. I think it really has to do with the major food influences there are in a particular region. But this actually kind of points out what's happening in the 18th and even in the 19th century. If foods are regional today, which they are very much so. The foods we have, say, here in the Midwest are going to be different than they are on the East Coast or in the South or even out West. We have differences in the regionality of food here, that there was much more differences or regionality to foods in the 18th century. So much so that foods may be very different, even 10 or 20 miles distance, and they would have different kinds of things to eat depending on what was popular in that area or their cultural influences. I think food was much more diverse at least from place to place, then we might actually believe what was happening there in the 18th and 19th century. And as for foods going extinct, I think almost everything that was available to us in the 18th century is still happening someplace. There's probably still pockets of people that cook these individual dishes exactly like that still today. And we even hear that sometimes in the comment section. It's like, oh, that's how my grandmother made it. Or we still make this exactly the same way. Maybe people in, say, Eastern Europe are still making a particular dish in a particular way that we don't do it in North America anymore. So it's very interesting to see how these so-called extinct foods still show up in different parts of the world. We've had an incredibly busy week and the holidays are coming right up. Be aware that we will be putting out our typical cooking episode on Tuesday instead of Monday because it's right up against the holiday there. Also, if you want to help support us, of course you can purchase products from our website and our print catalog. That is wonderful. If you want to just support us directly, you can head on over to our Patreon page and check that out. A lot of people are taking advantage of that and that is so helpful. So I want to thank you for that. Keep those questions and amazing comments pouring in. They are so encouraging and so helpful. I really want to thank everyone out there for the support that you give us that way. It is tremendous. And with the holidays coming up, I really wish everyone a Merry Christmas and a Happy Holidays. It is a wonderful time of year to get together with family. So I hope you have as much fun as we do when we're getting together. Thank you everyone so much for watching today.